Lagos Talks
91.3.
News.
Welcome to the news. President Muhammadu Buhari has strongly called on world leaders to find quick means to reach consensus on the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty with related commitments by nuclear weapon states. The president, in his farewell speech to the United Nations General Assembly, the UNGA, in New York yesterday, had spoke on the war in Ukraine, warning that the danger of escalation further justifies Nigeria's resolute calls for a nuclear-free world and a universal arms trade treaty, which are necessary measures to prevent global human disasters.
Indeed, the ongoing war in Ukraine is making it more difficult to tackle the perennial issues that feature each year in the deliberations of this assembly, such as nuclear disarmament, the right of the Rohingya refugees to return to their homes in Myanmar, and the Palestinians' legitimate aspirations for statehood and reduction of inequalities within and amongst nations. The danger of escalation of the war in Ukraine further justifies Nigeria's resolute calls for a nuclear-free world and a universal arms trade treaty, which are also necessary measures to.
The Nigerian leader, while speaking on the forthcoming 2023 general elections, vowed to entrench a process of free, fair, transparent, and credible elections through which Nigerians elect leaders of their choice.
We believe in the sanctity of constitutional term limits, and we have steadfastly adhered to it. We have seen the corrosive impact on values when leaders elsewhere seek to change the rules to stay on power. Indeed, we now are preparing for general elections in Nigeria next February. At the 78th Anga, there will be a new face at this podium speaking for Nigeria. Ours is a vast country, strengthened by its diversity and its common values of hard work, enduring faith, and.
That was the president speaking at his farewell speech to the United Nations General Assembly in New York. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), Atiku Abubakar, says he cannot decide the resignation of the party's national chairman, Iyorchia Ayu. Atiku spoke in a statement hours after the camp of Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State had pulled out of his presidential campaign council for next year's elections, insisting that Ayu must go for a southerner to step in. Atiku Abubakar, however, urged those members of the PDP who have stated their resolve to withdraw from the campaign council to have a rethink, retrace their steps, and join the party in its efforts. Wike's group, after a Tuesday midnight meeting which ended Wednesday morning at the private residence of the governor in Port Harcourt, had announced its withdrawal from the campaign council, which was recently formed. The Nigeria Senate has confirmed the appointment of Justice Olukayode Ariwoola as the substantive Chief Justice of Nigeria. During the screening process at yesterday's plenary, the new CJN, while responding to questions, promised to project the Nigeria judiciary to greater heights.
We just discovered on Monday, when we started sitting, that 12 appeals were listed for justices to deal with. 12 appeals on one day. So in 3 days, you can imagine how many appeals we would take. And how do we write these judgments? We need to appoint more justices. But as we said, the rules will have to be amended. There are many cases that should not be allowed to come up. Many cases should be allowed to stop at the Court of Appeal. It's only by the constitutional amendment that can happen. And the Constitution can only be amended not by the courts, but by this distinguished House, Senate. The National Assembly should please help us, the country, help the nation.
The new CJN, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, correspondent Raliat Adeniko in Abuja, reports that the new CJN also responded to questions on the administration of criminal justice and poor funding of the judiciary, as well as clarify that there is no crisis amongst the justices of the Supreme Court.
We shall make progress, once we have enough fund so to do. And it is my desire to meet with the President, who has presented my name, that I'm his choice, to say the only way we can move is for us to have fund. The judiciary of Nigeria must be properly funded. Judges should not be seen to go cap in hand. No, we should not beg for our entitlement. We should not. We have too much to do than to go about begging. And I'm sure you are aware, he who goes begging are sorrowing. May we not go a sorrowing. So that much with the appointment of judicial officers.
The National Industrial Court of Nigeria has ordered the Academic Staff Union of Universities to call off its ongoing nationwide strike. Delivering a ruling on the interlocutory injunction which was filed by the federal government, Justice Polycarp Hammond restrained the ASUU from continuing with the industrial action pending the determination of the suit. Justice Hammond, who is a vacation judge, had upheld the application of the federal government, saying it was meritorious and granted, as workers cannot go on strike when relevant sections of the Trade Dispute Act have been complied with by the Labour Minister in conciliating a labour dispute. He, however, ordered that the case filed should be returned to the President of the Industrial Court for reassignment to another judge. In the meantime, the federal government has declared that no one won or lost in the ruling of the court ordering members of the ASUU to return to work. Labour Minister Chris Ngige, who made a declaration while receiving members of the Nigerian Association of Medical and Dental Academics in his office yesterday, assured that the court ruling does not impede further negotiations between the federal government and the ASUU. The Labour Minister said the government would order the Vice-Chancellors and Pro-Chancellors to reopen the universities in compliance with the orders of the court, as the ruling is in the best interest of the nation. The ASUU has, however, stated that it is waiting for its lawyers for professional advice on the court ruling. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, held an emergency meeting this week Tuesday following deadly floods, which could worsen after neighboring Cameroon opened floodgates at a dam to release excess water. Its Director General, Mustafa Habib Ahmed, said 13 Nigerian states are at risk as the spillover effects from Cameroon's Lagdo Dam combined with heavy rainfall could affect more states, including the oil-producing Niger Delta. Since the start of the rainy season in July, at least 300 people have been killed and more than 100,000 others displaced. The National Broadcasting Commission, the NBC, has charged broadcast stations in the country to give equal access to all political parties ahead of the 2023 general elections, while also adhering strictly to the broadcasting code. NBC DG Balarabe Ilela, who gave the charge yesterday in Lagos at a sensitization forum on political broadcasting, had called on broadcast stations to verify all information before reporting and also avoid all forms of hate speech.
While doing our constitutional duties, we must put it at the back of our mind that we have no any other country but Nigeria. And whatever we are going to put on air, whatever we are going to say it, we must make sure that it's not intended to destroy our democracy. It must not be intended to destroy or undermine the existence of this country. So we must have this at the back of our mind.
The Lagos State Police Public Relations Officer, Benjamin Hundeyin, representing the State Commissioner, Abiodun Alabi, had also called on residents to cooperate with the command in maintaining law and order during and after the electioneering period.
I want to further reassure the political parties, all the stakeholders, and indeed the good people of Lagos State that the Nigeria Police Lagos State Command, under my watch, is ever ready to discharge its statutory duties professionally and efficiently, and the 2023 general elections, by God's grace, will be conducted in a safe and secure environment.
Correspondent Joshua Shioke reports that the program had featured 2 paper presentations on effective programming in an election period, the Broadcaster's Challenge, presented by R.A. Yusuf, and broadcast narratives in electioneering and national security, delivered by Dr. Peter Afunaya. You're listening to the news this Thursday morning. An Ikeja Special Offences Court on Wednesday refused the bail application pending appeal filed by convicted Nollywood actor James Olarewaju, better known as Baba Ijesha. Justice Oluwatoyin Taiwo rejected the bail application of the embattled actor on grounds that he did not meet exceptional circumstances and criteria to warrant the bail. The embattled actor is seeking a bail for an appeal for the 5-year conviction of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old. And the magistrate's court in Kano has remanded in custody a Chinese businessman accused of killing his Nigerian girlfriend. The suspect, Geng Kwanrong, who's 47, allegedly forced himself into the young lady's family residence, attacked her, and slit her throat with a knife last weekend, with the killing sparking public outrage across the country, with social media users and the victim's family calling for justice. The House of Representatives yesterday had also called on the Inspector General of Police to investigate the circumstances and bring the accused to book if found guilty. Outside the country, the Gabonese opposition leader, Guy Nzuba Ndama, has been placed under house arrest 5 days after being detained at the Congolese border with suitcases packed with about $2 million. His arrest was filmed and the opening of the suitcases posted on social media. Mr. Nzumba Ndama, a potential candidate in upcoming presidential elections in Gabon, has been charged with violations of import controls and cooperation with a foreign power. His party, the Democrats, say the accusations are politically motivated. The 76-year-old was for 19 years the Speaker of the National Assembly and a loyal ally of former President Omar Bongo, father of the incumbent Ali Bongo Ondimba. U.S. President Joe Biden has told the UN General Assembly that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is a shameless violation of the core tenets of the UN Charter. The U.S. President had urged the world to see Russia's outrageous acts for what it is, saying no one sought conflict aside from Moscow.
And a brutal, needless war. A war chosen by one man, to be very blunt. Let us speak plainly. A permanent member of the United Nations Security Council invaded its neighbor, attempted to erase a sovereign state from the map. Russia has shamelessly violated the core tenets of the United Nations Charter. This world should see these outrageous acts for what they are. Putin claims he had to act because Russia was threatened. But no one threatened Russia, and no one other than Russia sought conflict.
In the meantime, anti-war protesters in hundreds have been arrested in St. Petersburg and Moscow, all in Russia. Earlier on Wednesday, in a televised address to the nation, President Vladimir Putin had announced that military reservists are to be sent to Ukraine as part of a partial mobilization of Russian forces and what he termed a necessary step to ensure Russian territorial integrity in Ukraine. Putin also accused the West of nuclear blackmail and insisted that a threat to retaliate was not a bluff. Straight to business news this morning, the Nigerian Communications Commission has deployed 84 assistive information technology projects at different locations in Nigeria. This is to support people with special needs while supporting policies which enable disadvantaged members of society to live a more qualitative life. Executive Vice Chairman of the Commission, the NCC, Professor Umar Dambata, had disclosed this during a courtesy visit by a delegation from the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities to the NCC in Abuja. In the meantime, trading on the nation's bourse again ended negative on Wednesday as market capitalization lost 13 billion naira, or 0.05%, to close at 26.657 trillion naira against 26.670 trillion naira of Tuesday. Also, the all-share index lost 23.40 points, or 0.05%, to close at 49,421.91 from 49,445.31 recorded Tuesday. Accordingly, month-to-date gain moderated to 15.7%, while year-to-date loss increased to 19.56%. The loss was driven by price depreciation in FBN Holdings, Access Holdings, and WAPCO. Market sentiment closed positive with 10 gainers relative to 12 losers. Transactions in the shares of Zenith Bank topped the activity chart, with 6.3 million shares valued at 125.54 million naira. And lastly, sports news. All players expected at the Super Eagles camp have arrived. The duo of Ebube Duru and Francis Uzoho stormed the team's Constantine camp yesterday afternoon and also were part of the team's evening training session. Super Eagles head coach Jose Peseiro now has the full complement of the 24 invited players. Rivers United left back Duru got a late invitation following injuries to some of the regulars in the team. Earlier in the day, Leicester City forward Kelechi Iheanacho reported to the Super Eagles camp. The Eagles have two friendlies lined up against Algeria on Friday and then next week Tuesday.
Lagos Talks
91.3.